All right, here we go. We're already into the action. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the match that everybody was talking about. We have FaZe going against High Distortion and Krafty. High Distortion off that great performance in our last tournament, now playing with an even better teammate of Krafty. We're going to see if they're going to be able to match the aggressiveness of High Distortion, though. And where are we landing, boys?
I don't know if we've talked enough about Krafty, by the way. Krafty is an incredibly skilled
100%.
player. He's a crazy good builder, very accurate, so I really am looking forward to this duo.
Yeah, and one thing that I like about Krafty, too, is I think he's going to match a lot of that play style that we saw from HD. Last week, we saw him play, obviously, with Avery. Avery and High Distortion finished second overall, lose to FaZe in the grand final, so we obviously had that kind of matchup heading into this one. But the major thing, too, is I thought Avery's overall gameplay, which we were talking about quite a bit, Taylor, totally changed up from what we're used to seeing him play, which is usually on the outskirts, playing very slow. If we know anything about High Distortion, he wants to be up in those very quick, in-your-face type of engagements, get those kills going early and kind of flow throughout the map. That was definitely not something that really catered toward Avery's strategy. I think he did well. I think he did very well.
Without question.
When you really look at what really was different for him that entire series, but like I said, maybe a new teammate, both Krafty and High Distortion are amazing when it comes to the solo squad, so I think this is going to be a better fit overall for these two.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an advantage that HD and Krafty have because they said they both play solo squads a lot. Tifa, I've been noticing playing a little more. I mean, obviously Tifa and Cloaks are just gods in general at the game. Like, I don't know if they need to practice solo squads to be as good as they are, but I do think that if HD and Krafty are able to get past this first round matchup, which obviously is no easy task, I do think they're going to have a big advantage over their opponents going forward just because these are two guys who now it's like a 2v4 situation when they're used to 1v4s all the time. So I think that they're in a really good spot if they can get past this first round.
Yeah, I like the split we have on the landings. We have a Salty Springs for FaZe. Of course, we're used to kind of seeing a lot of the pros go over to Salty, but now we're seeing High Distortion and Krafty hit up Retail right off the bat. Of course, both players are going to be, or both teams are going to be finding engagements off the bat, but they're going to have some traveling time before they meet up with each other overall in the center. We're kind of curious to see where the circle is going to collapse down on, but let's talk about the update that we just recently had, right? The double pistols coming out, they are so incredibly powerful. Do we think we start seeing that implemented in the overall strategies?
I mean, what? It does 43 damage per hit. That's absolutely absurd when you really talk about crit damage and whatnot. I mean, I think up close it's going to be kind of difficult, but I think for those medium range engagements, I think the dual pistols can absolutely be viable in the right hands. But, I mean, I think the dual pistols are a really interesting addition. I know a lot of people coming into pistols were like, okay, probably like another revolver type addition. But no, this is a totally different type of weapon compared to the others in its category. And I think it can absolutely be useful when it comes down to tournaments, especially like these.
Speaking of recent updates as well, we talk about the Silence SMG getting a buff, and we just saw Distortion get, I think, 3 different knocks with it from a range that normally it has no effectiveness at. So in terms of the double pistol we were talking about earlier, I wonder if it's a little too new for players to trust in a $20,000 tournament, right? But it is very strong. I think you're gonna probably see another week of practice before we start seeing it inside of these tournaments.
I know one of the players that's been rocking it. I've been watching TSM Daquan. He's been playing it, and he actually opted for a double. I don't know if he's just playing around or not, but I saw him opting. Of course, Double Pump God coming in with the double pistol strat, and coming in and kind of switching it up, and he was just absolutely melting people. I think at one point he was playing around. He had some ramps built up along with some bouncer traps, and he was just bouncing back and forth in between the two, just beaming this guy with the double pistols. So kind of curious if he's going to transition over to that. Of course, it is very powerful, but they got to get the timing right, and we might see it. I think honestly the person will probably see it from the most might even be Ninja. I know that he loves to rock those weapons after the updates, but of course getting into this game once again, kitted up fairly well for both sides. We see a gold scar in the hands of Cloaksy, High Distortion rocking the purple scar himself, plus he's got the grenade launcher in his back pocket. He could be absolutely deadly with that, but looks like, is that a double pump that I see with him? Typically we see him rock a pump along with a tactical submachine gun, maybe even the silenced SMG.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to keep note of course you're a fan of any team who's facing off against FaZe, which I feel like a lot of the TSM fans, other organizations have kind of been unfortunately lost to the FaZe boys, but I know they've kind of developed a rivalry among other squads and whatnot. But one thing, when it comes down to their strategies, to me, and this is kind of categorized by myself, FaZe to me is the best team in the game currently at Victory Royales, which you would think normally isn't that big of a strategy. But what I'm saying is that they are amazing at staying alive throughout the rest of a series. You're talking about winning a lot of these games isn't very important, but the name of Friday Fortnite is obviously finding kills, but it's also staying alive. And that's one thing that they absolutely succeed in quite a bit, and the reason why we see them kind of go on the outskirts. They started off their strategies in Friday Fortnite, but kind of being aggressive, and then over time, I think playing in those overall team scrims has made them kind of transition to more of a slower play. And I don't know, man, I just think that when it comes down to having High Distortion go up against this squad, the reason why he lost in those finals, or those 2 different matchups that we saw, was due to early deaths a lot of the time, whether it was Avery when he dropped 24, whether whether it was in the actual grand final series where he died early. It's a matter of staying alive versus the FaZe guys, which already is hard enough to keep up with them, but to stay alive till the ending of a game is almost impossible at some points.
Yeah, and as we've kind of progressed through these weeks, we kind of start to see the players find the best mix of high action versus staying alive, right? In the beginning, we either see a guy get a bazillion kills in the beginning or die off the bat, right? There wasn't really as much in between, and now you're seeing a lot more, like I said, like valuing your life more, but still making sure that you get enough action to where you don't start off, with 50 players remaining, and you only have like 1 kill combined.
Right.
And we see the current score being 6-4. We have a bit of a slower start than we're typically used to seeing for High Distortion, right? Last tournament, he had at one point a 14.2 kill ratio throughout the match, which is absolutely unheard of. And at this
14 kills per game.
14 kills per game. I mean, you think about that, that's absolutely insane and really unfounded. But now he's slowing up a little bit at 3 kills. But, of course, you're only limited to how many, or at least the RNG. What can you find? And, of course, going retail seemed to be a little bit slower than the Salty Springs drop of Tfue and Cloaksy. But High Distortion will be finding a player. And look at that accuracy, Ryan, just mowing them down.
That's the power of that Scar right there. Getting a Scar early for these guys is going to be deadly.
And one thing, too, that I want to point out, I think really, and I know this is kind of notable for a lot of players, or a lot of people who watch the Friday Fortnite tournaments, the community that we have around these things, High Distortion, without question to me, is the key to taking down the FaZe Clan boys. The dynasty that FaZe is forming when it comes to Friday Fortnite is almost unbeatable, but HD, to me, is the only guy who I have seen day in and day out, all the matches that he's had facing off against them, to remain consistent. You see, he already has 6 kills. Like, we're not exactly sure how he found all those that quick, but it's normal when it comes down to him. So I think if he can find a solid pair, Avery did very well last week. I think it was a little bit too much of a change-up between their overall strategies as a unit. But if you combine HD's overall amazing play, his transitional play throughout the entirety of a series, and the frags that he can put up, along with someone who can kind of play that aggressive style, but also is willing to stay alive to help him get to the reses, to be that consistent guy. Essentially, to me, I think High Distortion needs a Cloaksy. Like, he really does need a player like that who is very good at overall having consistent games almost every single time for Tfue.
And speaking of Cloaksy, we see him get lit up down to 8 health right now, popping that med kit. Tfue also only at 77 health. They look like they're in a little bit of engagement right now.
Yeah, definitely. So, go back to your point, Landon. Cloaksy has been one of the most consistent players throughout the tournaments, and he's just a consistent player overall. And to be paired up with Tfue, of course, with that aggression is absolutely just a dominant team, and we see that. But look at this. Tfue has managed to get 6 kills since we've been get up to 6 kills total since we've been talking. On top of that, he just got a knock, and another knock in possession as a player is going to be just below him, as it looks like the route that they have taken over here, going from Salty to Dusty, they haven't had to travel far, and they've been finding players left and right, whereas High Distortion and Krafty struggling a little bit whenever it comes to finding kills. Of course, we saw HD light up a little bit, getting up to 6 eliminations, 6 frags, but now it's slowing down as they're over by Loot Lake. They do see an engagement up ahead, but overall, between the two teams, very even, but it looks like FaZe is having the advantage so far.
And Landon, you talked about earlier kind of what it takes to beat a team like FaZe, right? I think the reason that HD has such a good chance to kind of be the one to do it is because in order to beat FaZe, you know what you're going to get from them every single map at this point, right? So you really have to keep your pedal to the metal the whole time, because if you let up for even a few minutes, they can make a lead extend so far so fast. And so I think that that's why players like Distortion and Krafty have a chance to maybe take them down, because they also put the pedal to the metal. They play solo squads. They don't hesitate when they see a few guys in front of them, right? They push it, right? And that's kind of what separates teams like this from other teams in our tournament.
Absolutely true. And it looks like Krafty does run out of mats. The situation has to kind of go for a little bit of a backup play. Join alongside his teammate HD and try to reassess the situation, maybe hand over a few mats, but it looks like players are already dropped, and Krafty waiting to try to find a few resources off of the corpse, as he's going to grab a little bit of wood and try to retransition himself. Thankfully, 500 plus wood when it comes down to the resources, and it looks like the frags are going to come in unison. And this is great things to see whenever you are a fan of TSM, at least the organization overall. These guys aren't necessarily on the pro team, but man, could they absolutely make a case for having one of those excess organizations, maybe like a TSM white, TSM black, I don't know exactly, but these two guys, man, they are very, very talented.
Yeah, and this engagement has drug on for quite some time now. You notice the Storm is on their back, so they have to get moving relatively soon, and I don't know how much distance they have to cover, but I can only assume that it's going to be quite a distance, at least, trying to see as close he's just showing us that map just a little bit. But it's a different, it's a hike, but still, though, you got to be thinking, are you going to be able to find players, because you're back to the Storm? Obviously, you've already eliminated the players coming out of the Storm, so are you going to have players moving forward?
I love that, man.
But let's see, what do we got
going on? Tfue just rocked the jump trap into the bounce pad to go and propel himself just a little bit farther to try to make himself get into that zone. That's one thing that I love about Tfue, is that you always, if you're watching his stream, you're just like seeing him utilize like such interesting strategies when it comes into his gameplay, like little things that no one would expect or know. Tifu's the one guy who's grinding out this game, figuring out a lot of those excess strategies, and always kind of countering on things of that nature. And like I said, you just get to witness it there.
He, to me, is like the most innovative player I've seen so far. I try to watch as many streams as I can from pro players, streamers, entertainers, but every time I go on Tifu's stream, I learn something new about the game, or I learn a new strategy that I didn't know before, and he just seems to always be the first one to figure this stuff out. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch Tifu. Just his streams in general, he's always finding different ways to kind of play the game overall, and he's so innovative. Cloaksy, though, has seemed like he's currently offline. Unfortunately, no, Cloaksy, come back!
Rest in peace, Cloaksy.
Rest in peace. Can we get Fs for respect? But Cloaksy, I guess, is going to be offline. Hopefully, he's still playing in the game. We're going to look and monitor at least to see if he disconnects, unfortunately. But before he did go offline, I saw that he was up to 6 total frags, so looking definitely strong. I think we have 8 on the top there for Tifu, so... math is hard, but I believe that's 14. So looking definitely strong overall. And then on the right
14 to 10
side,
right now.
It's 14 to 10, 4-kill lead.
Yeah.
Not too much. That's a team elimination, but luckily for Distortion Krafty, they were able to break that storm. I thought they were going to kind of get caught up a little bit, but they are going to be inside Dusty, which so many more trees there. Which, by the way, those trees are really OP. They give you over 50 wood. Plus, you have mushrooms growing by each individual tree down there.
Krafty's
So
coming up on a lot of players right now.
Actually, HD at the moment is receiving quite a bit of fire trying to go for the quick build, but it looks like as things start to fall, he could possibly be as well. 54 HP in a dream. You need to try and build up as much as he can, and just like that, he runs out of resources. That's the thing with Hop Rocks. They can be great when it comes into building, but also easily take away your resources and quickly having to go for this med kit. It's going to be incredibly close. Keep in mind your top right of your screen. I believe he will get this one off, but just in the nick of time. You want to talk about a game of seconds, like just in a matter of moments, if that player doesn't challenge as quickly as he did, HD is down and Avery's left in a permanent 1v2 for the rest of our 8 engagements that we have remaining.
Yeah, we're down to 8 engagements total, and we're going to have to see who's going to be able to find them, as we know that HD and Krafty, they have a minor deficit, but still they can recover that and come into Game 2 relatively even. But you notice on your screen, FaZe, they also have the Storm to their back, but a little bit better off than HD. But Krafty will spot a player in the Storm currently, and he has to go for the push. He knows at this point he has to get aggressive. RPGs are going to be out. Will he be able to connect any of them? He'll just spot this player over to the right, building over, and I got to say his building skills have been on point. RPG goes down. Does he get the knock? No, he does not, but he's going to follow up with his back pocket of the burst and try to get this player a little bit shaky, but he's able to get it.
I think Tifu came in and got 2 of those kills that Distortion and Krafty put so much damage into. That's super unlucky. That would have been basically their chance to take the lead back.
Yeah, definitely so. As it's getting down to the wire, we see now 3 total engagements still remaining. Krafty having to heal up. Distortion finally able to break that storm, and he's going to join up with his teammate. But, of course, FaZe, they're going to be on the other side of that mountain trying to spot the players over by Bridge. So we do see a split. So one of the teams is going to find them and be able to finish up the remaining kills. But in the meantime, Distortion is going to go for the supply drop, which if I were him, I would definitely be searching quite aggressively for these last remaining kills.
Also find the jump pad and a med kit. That's going to be great for late game. But the thing is, though, is that while he's doing that, he's trying to recover from the storm. That's when FaZe is going to absolutely take advantage of these frags that they're not in a position to try to grab right now. Tifu going for the quick down. I think he put down a bounce trap quickly to try and escape from a lot of these shots, and it looks like this could be one of the final squads. And you notice on the opposite end of that mountain happens to be Cloaksy, the pinch being set up here from FaZe, and just take a quick little look at all of these builds. Tifu showing off his incredible skills when it comes down to how much inputs he can do per second. Just like that, Cloaksy will respond with the final few frags, and just like that, Tifu putting up 13. FaZe having somewhat of an advantage coming in toward map number 2. And that's the thing that I talk about. FaZe, to me, is the best conditioned team when it comes down to a game of Fortnite. Like I said, they are always countering on strategies that the other team is always making. Distortion and Krafty in that situation, the reason why they were down and kind of weren't in a great position to find those final few frags is because they were challenging things kind of in that storm zone. You notice what FaZe does is that I think they find the jump pad early and they totally work off of that play, meaning that, like I said, we saw Tifu kind of putting that jump trap, or that bounce trap rather, in unison with the bounce pad. From there, he's kind of surveying the area, getting a little bit of an idea as to where players are, and then from there, playing that gatekeeping role toward the latter parts of this game. To me, what the other TSM squad obviously struggles with is that they're just trying to get through that storm. They find those, 2 or 3 kills in unison, but what that does is it sets them up in such a worse position to those last 4, 5, 6 kills that were available. So you're kind of, in some cases, affirming 2 to let 6 possibly go over toward FaZe, which I think is what we see in this situation. And that's why I said FaZe is always putting themselves in a greater situation and always planning for those rotations. And that's one thing that I think separates them from a lot of these other squads is that they obviously are a duo team, but they're also scrimming 9 in and 9 out. They know every little thing when it comes down to this game, things that what kind of propels FaZe and obviously propels Hamlin's and Myth, TSM boys, to having a lot of excess strategies and a lot of excess practice that a lot of these other teams do is always kind of putting yourself in a position to succeed in that situation. I think we'd probably see a much closer game. It's still decently close regarding the lead, but I think that's what kind of messes up TSM toward the end is finding engagements toward the Storm, FaZe setting themselves up for success, and obviously find the last squad in the things.
To me, the big swing that we talk about them kind of getting out of the Storm a little late and kind of being late to the party, right? There was that team of 4 where Distortion and Krafty put so much damage in, but because FaZe was on the rotation quicker, ended up actually kind of like, we call it kill stealing, whatever you want to call it, but stole those kills. I mean, we ended up with a 5-point deficit. They get those kills. That's 2 kills FaZe doesn't get and 2 kills they get. We have almost a tie game, right? So, I mean, FaZe is the best team in the world for a reason right now, and HD and Krafty, this is their chance right now, map number 2.
I'm going to point out, this is a pretty odd strategy that we're not used to seeing is landing Anarchy Acres, but happens to be one of the weekly challenges here for week number 9, happens to be eliminating opponents in this exact situation. So pretty interesting off the bat as it looks like, other player, high Distortion.
Oh, no.
The Deagle has been found. Oh my goodness, having to go for the quick builds. There's players all around him, needing to try to find a weapon as quickly as he possibly can. Nearly gets away from the hay bales, but has to back up. Where's his teammate? Can Krafty go big to save HD in this awkward predicament? And he is just juking players left and right. It looks like he could be going for a pickaxe kill.
I don't think his teammate has a weapon
Yeah,
either.
him and Krafty have not found weapons. The Anarchy strat looked great off the start, but you notice HD, he goes for kind of an ego challenge off the start. He thought he could find that weapon before the opposite enemy. Not the case in that spot. Deagle to the body does 75 damage, and HD's got to. Like I said, this is the worst possible situation for TSM. They lose what was an advantage. They don't have any weapons, and now they're already in a setback position. And this is what FaZe likes to do, right? They counter off the enemy's mistakes. They're sitting pretty. They're getting all their kits up. They're feeling pretty confident. Well, like I said, HD and Krafty make a little bit of a mistake, and they're absolutely going to pay for it.
Yeah, this is going to hurt a lot for HD and Krafty. I mean, he got to be. The only thing was HD was on the back of that chest, and unfortunately, that player just grabbed it. I mean,
he ego challenged to go for that weapon.
He grabbed the Deagle and hit him with a Deagle shot that knocked him at 25 health too. So I mean, shout out to whoever that player was for the blind fire Deagle shot off the rip. But very unfortunate situation for HD and Krafty. Meanwhile, the guys on FaZe have full kits now.
Yeah, and this is the thing, we talk about hot drops versus coming outside of those areas like we just saw once again. This is the second time we saw FaZe go into those dilapidated houses on the outside of Salty and then work their way in once they have a little inventory, which, by the way, a phenomenal shot coming in the back pocket of Tfue there. I believe he was able to get off a pump shot and then come in and finish him off with the AR, but he's just beaming these players left and right. And this, if you're HD and Krafty, this is not what you want to see. Of course, going into this with an already deficit and seeing Tfue lighting it up, and I believe that's going to put him at 4 knocks. I believe that was a total team in front of him.
Absolutely is. And this is the thing, man, when I talk about, like, Tfue has already found 3 kills. The early situation that TSM is now put in, having a deficit coming into this map number 2, is now even more apparent. And that's the thing that I was kind of bringing up. I know the ego challenge, term isn't the greatest, but I mean, in that situation, HD, right, he goes to the top right of that barn building. He knows a player's there, right? He knows that someone is there, but he tries to go for the weapon, thinking that he's going to kind of grab that guy regarding reactions. And that's the RNG comes into play. Any other player, that guy's probably a little bit better than most by the fact of how quickly he grabbed the weapon and by the accurate Deagle shot off the start. I mean, that's like I said, that's the RNG that comes into these tournaments, is not knowing who you're facing off against, the players that you're matching up as well. And taking a look at that scoreboard, man, 24-15, already a squad being picked up from FaZe in the long term of things. And like I said, HD and Krafty, they are just now starting the game, and half the lobby is already out.
Yeah, and they're working their way back to Anarchy Acres, trying to get revenge on the Deagle player that stole it and got the shot on HD, but this is a little bit too late to be going back to Anarchy Acres, especially when you start thinking about the rotation that needs to be coming through, where players are dropping left and right, and especially because Tfue and Cloaksy, they've been just mowing players down as they've already rotated out of Salty, got the eliminations there, and now work their way over towards Dusty. Of course, though, they have to be careful in this area, and they are doing so. They're building up. They're looking great. Defensive builds are absolutely phenomenal at this point. But, of course, you always have to be careful whenever you're working your way over to Dusty. A lot of different areas you can be taken out. But if you're talking about Anarchy, they need to move away from this. They need to start pushing in. They need to start going to a more highly populated area. It looks like they have found the team, but how many more players can actually be here? You got to be thinking.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed that FaZe does so well is they get so many kills in Divot. They always, make sure they rotate over there at some point.
Right.
They very rarely go inside of Divot until they actually have the downs, right? So many times where they're just shooting in there, and they're obviously such accurate players. They open up the kills so well by getting the first 2 downs and then coming in there and cleaning up the kills. Another team shows up, very highly populated area. Everyone wants the hop rocks, obviously. It's just one place that I always see FaZe getting a lot of kills. As we're looking at this right now, I mean, they came in with a 5-kill lead. They have 8 kills. HD and Krafty still have none. You got to be thinking this match is pretty much over at this point. There's 39 kids left in the lobby. A huge lead. FaZe is still alive. They're not going to let up.
Yeah.
It's looking like our previous champs are going to move forward.
And even more props to FaZe when it comes down to their landing zones as well. And one thing that I really like about this team is their ability to counter. They know, like, a lot of the times when you watch FaZe's gameplay, they're usually the second team to drop a lot of the time because they're trying to counter what the enemy's doing. If you see a team going toward Retail Row, maybe you counter them by going Salty Springs. Like little things like that kind of counter the opposition for what their future of Fortnite is to try to grab as many kills as possible. But regarding the early landing zone from HD and Krafty, I mean, say that play doesn't happen where HD takes a ton of damage. Say he wins that gunfight. They walk away with Anarchy around 3 or 4 kills. They're feeling pretty good. But where do they go from there, right? There's an opportunity to go to Tomato Town, a far jaunt to Pleasant Park. I mean, you're kind of setting yourself up to maybe go to Dusty, then to Tilted. But I feel like as far as the drop zones are considered, I feel like that was a little bit of a risky play. Granted, the challenge is the reason why they went there.
Oh, 100%.
The challenge has to be the case. I think we saw once Tupac, Thuglord, and Rice Gum like a few weeks ago randomly go to Anarchy, and it kind of worked out for them. But that's not a typical spot to go to. Yeah. And that's at the very northern part of the map. I just don't know, like, after you find how many kills are there, it's like where do you go? Like, I don't really understand the future of that play regarding, like, hey, we're down this amount of kills. We're versing a team like FaZe, who is probably going to put up, like, at least 10 per game between the two.
Yeah.
And then along with that, it's like, I don't know, there's like not really a really big populated area to go post-Anarchy that they can rely on to really bring themselves middle game back into this match. So, I don't know, man, I think regardless of what happened off the start, I don't think that we'd be saying HD and Krafty, they're right on the edge of FaZe's heels. Like, I don't know, man, it's just FaZe kind of played this one typical, and I think it's going to work out for them, obviously.
Yeah, and you're looking at their location now. I mean, over here, what is it? Are they by Trailer Park or this? I don't know the call out for sure for this area that they're at, but I mean, they will find players, but it's not going to be enough to close that deficit. I mean, where we've already had Salty from FaZe. Now we had Dusty. Now they're going to be over next to Loot Lake plus Tilted Towers. I mean, they are going to all the heavily populated areas to pick up kills, and they're performing exceptionally well. They're sitting at 9 total kills at this point. And what does HD and Krafty have? Well, yeah, they've got some kills. They've got 3 kills for HD. They are looted up quite well. Now, their inventory is looking absolutely great, but the problem is the engagements are starting to fade away. At this point, we need FaZe to go down in order for HD and Krafty to have any opportunity of a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's too little too late at this point. I think, again, it comes down to what we call the ego challenge in the beginning. It comes down to them basically starting off the game with no health and no weapons and having to kind of aimlessly run and just try to stay alive at that point, right? And meanwhile, FaZe, what we talked about earlier, they never let up. And so if you're going to be a team like FaZe, you got to come off the rip just absolutely gunning. And so, while I do like the idea of going where the challenges are because you're going to always see a lot of players there, I do agree with you. I don't know if it was well thought out because from there, where are you going to go?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Like I said, like, I don't know, and maybe they have a call for it, whatever it may be. Obviously, they're playing this game a ton of hours. They're practicing coming into this tournament as well. They might have worked something out. It's just like, do you go toward Pleasant Park when you're looking at the map? Like, do you make an eastern rotation toward Tomato Town? I just feel like when you're facing off against a team like FaZe Clan, who we've talked about giving them a lot of hype, they're 3-time champions for a reason. And the way that they've done that is by being consistent as far as kills, but also staying alive. And it's like, when it comes down to your mid game, when it comes down to your id game, you need to be set up in a position to succeed. FaZe has done that, right? They go toward the landing triangle as far as Salty Springs. They have Retail Row. They have Dusty Divot, where they can basically go anywhere around the map once they have those hop rocks in their possession. And so they're put in a great spot. I would have imagined HD and Krafty to probably go retail again. Yeah. They had a lot of success after game 1 by doing that exact same strategy. You could argue if they didn't get inside of that, inside of the storm, they could be within 2 kills. I mean, it's almost like an even game. So I don't know, man. It's just an odd play call for me, along with the early exit almost that we saw. I mean, 45 kills were down, and they had just kind of started their game off. So I don't know. I think there was a few errors when it comes down to this game. Unfortunately for HD and Krafty, they're going to start things off in losers round 1. But hey, we've seen teams do it in the past. We've seen FaZe actually do it in the past, starting from losers round 1 and making their entire way back into the grand finals. It'll be a haul for these guys, but like I said, they're going to get pretty well acquainted with each other as far as new teammates. So
Oh, yeah, 100%. And of course, HD and Krafty, even if they lose this, which is looking like they might, of course, they'll be moving down into the loser bracket. And they can definitely have a run, right? We've seen FaZe. I mean, FaZe is accustomed to coming through the loser bracket and making their way through. So it's not going to be any different from HD and Krafty. Of course, as we know, loser bracket gets absolutely stacked in the end. So it is going to be interesting to see who their competition is going to be as players are going to be dropping down. But as this match is, in fact, going to be just about over, I do want to give you guys a little update here. Vicstar and Noah J beat Avery and Thief first round, so they moved forward, which I know they were a part of your power rankings, which we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But they moved forward, and I'm kind of curious again to get a little update.
You said that was Vicstar? Sorry?
That was Vicstar
Okay.
and Noah J. They moved
Gotcha.
on and they beat Avery as well as Thief, and I'm kind of curious to know how our boys from the Saturday Fortnite Sean Claw TV and Tendons are doing against the King Rich Nabot Calvin, which actually we'll be switching over to them as soon as this match is over. We'll get to see
I'm excited to
how
see
they're
that, baby.
performing. But a tough break for HD and Krafty as now the kills are starting to get away from them. We're looking at I think at a deficit at this point. It's not possible for them to come back. We're sitting at a total of 10 more engagements left, and I think it's mathematically impossible at this point. So HD and Krafty, if you're a fan of them, they are in fact going to be moving down to the loser bracket, but they're not down and out. They're just down and out for this game alone. But of course, FaZe will be moving on to face off against OP and CDN or Ghost Ninja and Kitty Plays, depending on who won that match. But